Welcome to another video from DIY Daily. Just put together a full step-by-step guide, just showing you how to fit a new thermostat or stat housing on this 2011 Volkswagen Amarok. This one's got the 2 litre TDI in it, which is fitted to sort of all the earlier Amaroks up to about 2015. So we've got a new thermostat. We check the links in the description below. I'll put a link to a stat and where you can get one from. I'll put links to all the tools used and any torque settings as well. Now the thermostat's just located, a little bit tricky to show you at the minute without the lamp, but it's underneath the inlet manifold here. Once we've got the lamp on, I'll show you a little bit better, but I've not done one of these before, so I'm going to run through everything a step at a time. If there's anything that I think I need to do different, I'll just run you through that on the video anyway. But I think the best way to tackle it is just going to be to take this air pipe out of the way, take the alternator out of the way, and that should give us a decent bit of access to it. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take this air piping out of the way. Now basically this big rubber hose there, it's just on a Jubilee clip. You can just see the fitting for it down there. Just need a flat bladed screwdriver just to take it off the intercooler. So I'm going to undo that fitting there. Just got a little torque screw just holding it to the water pipe there. We'll take that off. And then it just sort of folds round, and where it comes onto the inlet manifold, we're going to take the Jubilee clip off there, and so we can take it all the way out. The only other thing we've got to do, it's got the map sensor in it. I'm going to leave the actual sensor fitted in, but we'll just disconnect the sensor from it, that's all. So we'll get all the pipe work out of the way first, and then I'll just get you on to removing the alternator, and then we should be able to access the stat after that. The 2 hose clip connectors are undone now. The main front bolt fitting there is undone. The connector for the map sensor is undone, but there is actually one more fitting for this pipe. You just need a longer Torx piece just underneath, so you just get through, and I'll just show you that once we've got it out. It out of the way, you can just see the other Torx bolt just went into that bracket for that fix in there, that's all. But you can now see the alternator. Next thing I'm going to do now is just remove the alternator belt. All you need is a long reach spanner just onto the centre of the tensioner. The tensioner is just there. You just need to turn it in the clockwise direction, and that'll pull the tension off the belt so that you can remove the belt, that's all. You just see as you pull it round, the belt goes slack. Right, so next thing we're going to do now, you can now see the alternator really well. We're just going to remove the alternator. It's a 2-bolt fitting. 1 bolt you can just quite clearly see just to the bottom of the alternator there, but the next one's actually just behind this bracket piece there. So we've just got to undo that bolt there, pull this pipe work out of the way, then we should be able to access the 2nd bolt for the alternator. So now that we've got that bracket out of the way, all you need is a 13mm socket, and you can access the bolt just through this little hole just there. It's quite easy to get on. Just one thing to note with the alternator as well, you really want to be disconnecting the battery when you're taking an alternator out of the way. It's got a main 12-volt feed directly from the battery, so you've got to undo that. You don't want to be catching it on anything on the body to short it out. So once we've unbolted the alternator, just taking the bolts out, we'll just disconnect the battery as well. Just take the negative terminal off. You don't need to take the negative terminal off, that'll do. Then we can disconnect the main connections from the alternator as well. So that's the bolts out now. The alternator, you might find it's a little bit tight. Sometimes you might just need to just work it gently with a pry bar just to get it out the fixings, that's all. We're just going to loosen that now. We'll pull it forward and then get them fixings off the back there, or it's a little bit more accessible. Right, so now that's just loosened, just pulled forward slightly. All you can see, it's quite straightforward. Just got one connector there, just the usual Volkswagen style connector. You can sometimes just flick it up with your hand, or just use a little flat bladed screwdriver in there just to pop it back and pop that off. And then we've got a 13mm nut just holding the main wire there. And obviously now that we've disconnected the negative lead of the battery, we can just move that out of the way without worrying about catching it on anything. So we'll just get that undone now, get the alternator out of the way. Right, so now that the alternator's out of the way, we can see most of the thermostat. You can see the body of it there. Obviously one of the pipe fittings there. That's a 2-bolt fitting. You can access the bottom bolt, but the top one, just try to show you with it down there. The top one is sort of just hidden up, a little bit tight to access. We'll just have a go at it, see if we can get in there to access it okay without. But you can see you need like a Volkswagen triple square socket on it, or it might have a hex side bit to it as well, so just let you know in a minute. But we'll just try get on that, take the pipes off first, and then see if we can get the 2 bolts out, that's all. I've just got the top fitting undone. Now it's got the original sort of spring style clips on it, just pulled it down, but the water pipes can get quite tightly sort of bonded on as well. Sometimes you need to just use like a pick to run it around the inside just to crack it off, to break it away, that's all. If you can sort of get on the pipe, this one's quite a solid one with the metal pipe there, but if you can just sort of work it a little bit, sometimes you can crack them off that way to get it pulled off. Yeah, so at the minute I've just got the one pipe off the front there. The other pipes are a little bit tight to access, so I'm going to attempt to undo the 2 10mm, but the 10mm are a little bit rounded on this, so I'm going to use the triple square socket. Just let you know what size that is in a minute, and then we'll pull it sort of hopefully out of the way enough to access some of the other pipe fittings a little bit easier. Right, so both bolts are out now. That's one of them. You can see it is like a 10mm outer, but with a triple square in the middle. It's a bit easier to do with the triple square socket if you've got one, but yeah, it's a size 8, I think it is. Yeah, size 8 triple square socket. I'll put a link to in the description below to them anyway. But while they're loose at the minute, obviously the thermostat pushes in, so it will be held in the seal. So I just sort of pop that out, and it does. So one pipe's on a clip, but there's another one that the stat housing slides over with a seal on it. So we'll just attempt to get that out of the way a bit now and see if we can get them other pipes off. Right, so that's the stat housing out. And I can just see all the different fittings on it. Obviously that's a push-on pipe fitting there, that's a push-on pipe fitting there, obviously the bolt-on fitting there with the rubber seal on it, but this one actually sleeves over another pipe. The only thing is, it's just worth getting, probably if you are going to fit one, it's probably worth getting the seal for this pipe there. I didn't realise it actually had that fitting on it, but the seal is just located on the pipe. If you just look at that pipe directly at the back there, you can see there's an O-ring seal around the actual pipe there. It's probably worth putting a new seal on that at the same time. I haven't actually got one, so I'm just going to put a bit of red rubber lube on there. I just want to refit the new one. But it is a little bit awkward to get out. It's obviously a bit tricky to film all that, sort of had the camera on for a bit of some of it, but it is really tight in there and it is a bit fiddly. You do need to sort of push the pipes off. Some of them are a little bit tricky to access to get the clips off, and it was probably sort of a good 20 minutes or so messing about just wiggling and jiggling, just trying to squeeze it out. This piece of the bracket there just gets in, and it's just a little bit tight around the engine mount there, but you can get it out. It just is a little bit awkward. So we're just going to get the new one fitted now. We'll just speed through that as we put it all back in, get all the pipes fitted on. Obviously just put a bit of rubber lube on that one there before we slot that over, and I'll just put a bit of rubber lube around the new seal on the new fitting as well before we push it into place. Well, the 2 bolts, just want a light nip on them. They don't need to be too tight. We'll just get that all put back on, all built back up, then we'll just run you through bleeding it up once it's all back together as well. Fucking tricky to see it all in it anyway. Right, so the stat's all fitted now, everything's nipped back up, the alternator belt's back on. That's all, obviously the tension's put back on that there. I've just checked around all the fittings, all the connectors are back on. All we've done now is just fill the coolant level up, just set it to the max at the minute. We're just going to strike it up now. There isn't actually any individual bleed screws on this, so we're just going to leave it running for about 10-15 minutes with the cap off. That should get most of the air out of the system. Then we'll put the cap on. Obviously, just if the level does drop, just keep it topped up to the max. And then we'll just put the cap back on, run it fully up to temperature. Just make sure that they're hot. Put it onto hot inside and make sure it starts blowing nice warm air in there. And then we'll run it fully up to temperature, give it a road test. Once it's settled, then just take the cap off and just check the level and just set it to the max as well. But as you can see, it's not too bad a job really. Obviously you could follow this same guide for just replacing the alternator as well. That part of it's quite straightforward, but yeah, we'll just crack on now, get it bled up. So the only other thing, because you've had the alternator belt off, once you've stuck it up, it's always worth just checking the belt quick, just making sure it's running okay. Just squealing a little bit, but we did get a little bit of antifreeze just on the belt, so I think that's just the antifreeze. We might just wash that off with a bit of brake cleaner. That should just sort that out. But yeah, we'll just leave it running now while we finish the video off. So I've sort of finished bleeding it up now, had it running for about 15 minutes with the cap off. I've put the cap on now, I've actually give it a road test as well, give it a decent run. Got back in it. Before I took it on a road test, I just checked that the blowers, it's blowing nice and warm now. It hasn't got a temperature gauge on here. Normally I just check with the temperature gauge to make sure you've got it up to temperature. But yeah, give it a run and just let it settle down. Just check the coolant level. But really, once it's cold, you then want to check the level again and just set it to the max, that's all. But just thought I'd put this video together. Hope it's helped someone having a go at theirs. If it did, give it a quick thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.